happening. Your body's gonna change faster than.
The hospital room was silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence. The heavy kind. The kind that makes every second feel longer than it should. Machines hummed quietly beside the bed. A heart monitor blinked steady green lines across a dark screen. And sitting in a chair beside the bed was Amy. Her hands were clenched tightly together. Her eyes hadn't left Tammy for nearly 20 minutes. Tammy lay motionless under thin hospital blankets. Her breathing slow. Her face pale. For years, Tammy had struggled with her weight. Everyone knew that. Millions of people had watched it. They had seen the arguments, the setbacks, the tears, the frustration. But what the world didn't know was how close Tammy had actually come to losing everything. Amy leaned forward in her chair, her voice barely above a whisper. "Tammy, you gotta fight, okay?" Her words trembled. "Don't you dare give up now." The monitor continued its steady rhythm. Beep, beep, beep. For a moment, Amy closed her eyes. And when she spoke again, her voice cracked. "People think they know our story." She swallowed hard. "But they don't know the truth." And years later, Amy would finally decide to reveal exactly what really happened during Tammy's weight loss journey. But the truth? It was far more complicated than anyone realized. Because Tammy's transformation didn't begin in a hospital. It began years earlier. In a small Kentucky town where two sisters were just trying to survive life the only way they knew how. If you've followed Tammy's story, you've probably seen the dramatic changes. The weight loss. The struggles. The victories. And the moments when it seemed like everything might fall apart. But what most people saw on the outside was only part of the story. Behind every milestone Tammy reached, there were moments of doubt. Moments where she wanted to give up. Moments where the pressure from the world felt too heavy to carry. And through all of it, one person stood beside her. Her sister, Amy. Their relationship wasn't perfect. In fact, sometimes it was messy. They argued. They disagreed. They frustrated each other more than anyone else could. But underneath all of that, there was something unbreakable between them. A bond formed through years of shared struggles. Because long before cameras showed up, long before millions of people started watching their lives, Amy and Tammy were just two sisters trying to navigate a world that often judged them before they even had a chance. And the truth about Tammy's weight loss journey can't be understood without going back to where everything really started. Dixon, Kentucky. A small town where everyone seemed to know everyone. It was the kind of place where news traveled fast. And unfortunately, so did judgment. Growing up wasn't easy for Tammy and Amy. Their family life was complicated. Money was tight. Opportunities were limited. And from a young age, both sisters learned that life wasn't always fair. Food slowly became more than just something to eat. It became comfort. A way to escape stress. A way to numb emotions that felt too overwhelming to face. For Tammy especially, food filled spaces that other things in life didn't. Loneliness. Insecurity. Fear. By the time she reached adulthood, her weight had become more than just a health issue. It had become part of her identity. And the heavier she became, the harder life became too. Simple things most people never think about suddenly turned into daily challenges. Walking long distances. Climbing stairs. Even leaving the house. But perhaps the hardest part wasn't the physical limitations. It was the feeling of being stuck. Feeling like change was impossible. Feeling like the world had already decided what her future would look like. And for a long time, Tammy believed it. But Amy never did. Even during the hardest moments, Amy always believed her sister could change. Even when Tammy herself didn't. And that belief would eventually become one of the most important forces in Tammy's life. But belief alone wasn't enough. Because the journey that would eventually change Tammy's life forever would begin with a moment that no one saw coming. It happened on an ordinary afternoon. Nothing dramatic. No cameras. No audience. Just Tammy sitting in her living room scrolling through her phone. At the time, her life had settled into a routine. Wake up, eat, watch TV, scroll online, repeat. But that afternoon something happened that would quietly shift the direction of her future. Tammy came across a message. At first she almost ignored it. But something made her open it. The message was from someone who had followed her online for a long time. And it wasn't a hateful comment. It wasn't criticism. It was something unexpected. Concern. The message read, "I know you probably get a lot of messages, but I just want you to know people care about you. I hope one day you realize you deserve a better life." Tammy stared at the screen. At first she rolled her eyes. She had seen messages like this before. People thinking they understood her life. But this one felt different somehow. Maybe it was the way it was written. Maybe it was the timing. Or maybe it simply reached her at a moment when she was already questioning things herself. Because deep down, Tammy knew something had to change. Her health was declining. Basic activities were becoming harder. And the fear she rarely admitted out loud had started creeping into her thoughts more often. What if things kept getting worse? What if one day her body simply couldn't handle it anymore? But change is terrifying, especially when you've spent years feeling like failure is inevitable. And that's why, even when the idea of losing weight crossed her mind, Tammy often pushed the thought away. Because trying meant risking disappointment. Trying meant facing the possibility that even her best effort might not be enough. But sometimes, life has a way of forcing difficult choices. And for Tammy, that moment was coming sooner than she realized. It happened one evening when Amy came over to visit. The two sisters were sitting in the living room. The TV was on, but neither of them were really paying attention to it. Amy noticed something. Tammy seemed quieter than usual. Normally she had plenty to say. Complaints, jokes, sarcastic comments about whatever show they were watching. But tonight she seemed lost in thought. Finally Amy spoke. "You all right?" Tammy shrugged. "Yeah." But Amy knew her sister too well to accept that answer. "Tammy, what's going on?" For a long moment Tammy didn't respond. Then she sighed. "I've been thinking." Amy leaned back slightly. "That usually means trouble." Tammy smirked a little, but the smile faded quickly. "I don't want to die young." The room suddenly felt heavier. Amy blinked. "What?" Tammy looked down at her hands. "I'm serious." Her voice was quieter now. "I've been thinking about it a lot lately." Amy didn't interrupt. For once, she simply listened. Tammy continued. "I know everyone thinks I don't care, but I do." She swallowed. "I just don't know if I can actually do it." Amy leaned forward. Her voice was calm but firm. "You don't gotta do it alone." Tammy looked up. Amy met her eyes. And in that moment, something shifted between them. Because for the first time in a long time, Tammy wasn't joking. She wasn't deflecting. She was being honest. And Amy could see it. But what neither of them realized yet was that the journey ahead would test their relationship more than anything ever had before. Because the road to change is never simple. And for Tammy, the hardest challenges were still waiting. The conversation between Amy and Tammy that night seemed small on the surface. Two sisters sitting in a quiet living room. A simple conversation about change. But sometimes the smallest conversations become the turning point of an entire life. And neither of them realized it yet. But that night would eventually lead to the moment Amy would later describe as the most terrifying chapter of Tammy's entire journey. Because deciding to change and actually changing are two completely different battles. And the first battle Tammy would face wasn't with food. It was with herself. The next morning started like any other. Sunlight slowly filtered through the blinds of Tammy's living room window. Dust floated in the air as the quiet Kentucky morning settled around the house. Tammy sat in her chair holding her phone. She stared at the screen. Her finger hovered over a search bar. For nearly a minute she didn't type anything. Then finally she did. "Weight loss help near me." The results appeared instantly. Doctors, clinics, support groups, nutritionists. programs. So many options. And yet Tammy felt overwhelmed. Every result felt like a reminder of how far she had to go. Her mind immediately filled with doubt. What if I fail again? What if people laugh at me? What if nothing works? For years, those thoughts had always stopped her before she even started. But this time something felt slightly different. Maybe it was the conversation with Amy the night before. Maybe it was the growing fear about her health. Or maybe it was simply exhaustion. Exhaustion from living this same painful cycle every day. Whatever the reason, Tammy did something she had never done before. She made a phone call. Her hands trembled slightly as the phone rang. A receptionist answered politely. "Good morning, Weight Management Clinic. How can I help you?" For a moment, Tammy almost hung up. But instead, she forced the words out. I think I need help." It was the first honest step she had taken in years. And in that moment, something inside Tammy shifted. The journey had officially begun. Later that afternoon, Amy arrived at Tammy's house carrying 2 grocery bags. "Got lunch," she said casually as she walked in. Tammy looked up from the couch. "What did you bring?" Amy placed the bags on the table. "Salads." Tammy stared at her. "You serious?" Amy smirked. "Well, unless you want to go back to burgers." Tammy rolled her eyes. But then she said something unexpected. "I called a clinic today." Amy froze mid-step. "You did what?" Tammy shrugged slightly. "I called a weight doctor." Amy slowly set the grocery bags down. For a moment, she just stared at her sister. "You serious right now?" Tammy nodded. Amy's expression softened. "Well, dang." She sat down across from Tammy. "When's the appointment?" "Next week." Amy leaned back in the chair. A smile slowly spread across her face. "Well, look at you." Tammy crossed her arms. "Don't get all excited yet." Amy laughed. "Girl, I've been waiting years to hear you say something like that." Tammy tried to hide it. But a small smile appeared on her face too. For the first time in a long time, both sisters felt something they hadn't felt in years. Hope. But hope can be fragile. And the real challenges hadn't even started yet. The clinic waiting room smelled faintly of antiseptic and coffee. Tammy sat nervously in a wide chair while Amy sat beside her scrolling through her phone. Tammy's leg bounced slightly. "You nervous?" Amy asked. Tammy didn't answer immediately. "A little." Amy nudged her. "Hey, you already did the hardest part." Tammy frowned. "What's that?" "Showing up." Just then the nurse called Tammy's name. Tammy slowly stood. Her heart pounded harder with every step toward the examination room. Inside, the doctor greeted her warmly. He was calm, patient, and most importantly, he didn't judge. After reviewing Tammy's health history and current condition, the doctor spoke gently but honestly. "Tammy, your body has been under an incredible amount of stress for many years." Tammy looked down. "But the good news is change is possible." Those words stuck with her. Change is possible. The doctor explained that the journey wouldn't be quick. It would require discipline, consistency, and emotional work. Because weight loss wasn't just about food. It was about habits, environment, mental health, and self-belief. Before leaving, the doctor said something Tammy would remember forever. "This isn't about becoming perfect." He looked directly at her. "It's about becoming healthier than yesterday." And for the first time in years, Tammy felt like someone actually believed she could do it. The first few weeks were harder than Tammy expected. Changing eating habits felt unnatural. Foods she had relied on for comfort were suddenly gone. Late-night cravings hit like waves. Sometimes she found herself staring into the refrigerator long after midnight. Just thinking. Fighting with herself. Some nights she won. Other nights she didn't. And every time she slipped up, the old voice in her head returned. "See? You can't do this. You'll never change." Those voices were loud. But Amy kept showing up. Sometimes with healthier meals. Sometimes with encouragement. Sometimes with tough love. One evening, after Tammy admitted she had eaten an entire box of snacks late at night, Amy sighed heavily. "You can't keep doing this." Tammy snapped back. "You think I don't know that?" The room grew tense. Amy shook her head. "I'm not attacking you." "Well, it feels like it." Amy paused. Then her voice softened. "Tammy, I just don't want to lose you." That sentence changed the mood instantly. Tammy looked away. Neither of them spoke for nearly a minute. Finally, Tammy whispered, "I'm trying." Amy nodded slowly. "I know." And that was the truth. Tammy was trying. But trying doesn't always look perfect. Sometimes trying looks messy. Sometimes trying looks like failure. But trying is still the beginning of progress. As Tammy's journey slowly became more public, something unexpected began happening. People online started watching, commenting, analyzing every detail of her life. Some messages were supportive, encouraging, kind, but others were brutal. Cruel jokes, harsh criticism, people claiming she would never change. At first, Tammy tried to ignore it. But reading thousands of comments every day can wear down even the strongest person. One night, Amy walked into the room and found Tammy staring silently at her phone. "What's wrong?" Amy asked. Tammy turned the screen toward her. Comment after comment filled the page. "She'll never lose the weight. She's too lazy. This is just for attention." Amy felt anger rising in her chest. She grabbed the phone. "Stop reading this garbage." Tammy sighed. "They might be right." Amy looked at her sharply. "No." Tammy shrugged. "I've failed before." Amy leaned forward, her voice serious. "Tammy, listen to me." Tammy met her eyes. "You ain't the same person you were before." "But what if I mess it all up again?" Amy shook her head. "Then you get back up." Tammy stayed quiet. Amy added one final sentence. "And I'll still be right here." For a moment, Tammy's eyes filled with tears. Because deep down, she knew Amy meant it. 3 months into the journey, something surprising happened. Tammy stepped onto the scale during a routine checkup. She expected disappointment. But the nurse looked at the numbers and smiled. "Tammy, you've lost 38 pounds. Tammy blinked. "What?" The nurse repeated it. 38 pounds. For a moment, Tammy didn't react. Then slowly, her face changed. Shock. Disbelief. And then something else. Pride. When she told Amy later that day, Amy nearly screamed. "Are you serious?" Tammy laughed. "Yeah." Amy hugged her tightly. "I told you." For the first time, the journey didn't feel impossible anymore. Progress was real. And that progress fueled motivation. But what Tammy didn't know yet was that the next chapter of her journey would be the most difficult one yet. Because sometimes, right when things start going well, life throws an unexpected challenge. And in Tammy's case, that challenge would push her to a breaking point no one saw coming. Several months later, Tammy began feeling something strange. At first it was subtle. Shortness of breath. Fatigue. Moments where standing up felt harder than usual. She assumed it was just part of the process. But Amy noticed something was off. One evening while they were talking, Tammy suddenly stopped mid-sentence. "You okay?" Amy asked. Tammy took a deep breath. "Yeah, just tired." But Amy frowned. "You've been saying that a lot lately." Tammy shrugged. "It's nothing." But deep down, Amy wasn't convinced. And unfortunately, her instincts were about to be proven right. Because the moment that would change everything was closer than anyone realized. And years later, when Amy finally decided to reveal the truth about Tammy's journey, she admitted something shocking. The world thought Tammy's biggest battle was losing weight. But according to Amy, that wasn't the hardest part at all. The hardest part was the moment when doctors weren't sure Tammy would survive. And that terrifying moment was about to begin. The night everything changed didn't begin with chaos. It began quietly. Almost too quietly. Outside, the Kentucky sky was dark and still. The kind of night where the world seems peaceful even when something terrible is about to happen. Tammy had been feeling strange all day. Not sick exactly. Just off. Her energy felt drained in a way she couldn't explain. Even sitting upright felt exhausting. Her breathing was heavier than usual, but she kept telling herself it was nothing. She had been through rough days before. Weight loss was never a smooth journey. Some days your body feels strong. Other days it feels like it's fighting against you. So Tammy did what she had always done. She ignored it.